this training is about content type configuration, and part of it is as well the satellite modeling. I appreciate that it might be a big topic for this for 1 hour, but what I would like to do in this session is to give a general understanding of what it is. Sometimes we take this question, what is the difference with the modification sets and the configuration we do there? Again, as well, what kind of privileges I would need in order to be able to do content type configuration, how can I access it in the Connect portal, and what exactly I can configure. So what exactly I can configure includes the satellite modeling, as well as some configuration I will be doing in the published content related to item configuration, hierarchies, and in service list 26, now some configuration I can be doing for the published content and how this comes up in the enterprise search. So this is the only slide for today, and I think it makes sense to do a live demo because it's rather a technical topic. Before I go to my environment, just to start with the first topic here, what is the content type configuration? It is a way to decide and edit and manage how I want items to show in ARIS Connect. Items, we mean models, objects, connections, or groups. More often, it is about models and objects, but in any case, we have as well the option to do it on connections and groups. And it is about self-service configuration, let's say, that I can do to the ARIS Connect portal to decide how I want the content to show, to get displayed in ARIS Connect. Now, there is also the modification set that maybe some of you are familiar with this, and I can also do some configuration there, again, part of the self-service configuration. The difference is that I do mostly different things in these spaces. So satellite modeling is only under the content type configuration. And now the new functionality about the enterprise search is only under content type configuration. Modification set is when I want the place to update the company colors and again to edit the fact sheets and a few more things there. And indeed, I can do item configuration in both. When I start doing in content type configuration, then this functionality is, and I activate it, obviously, because that's why I would be doing it. Then this functionality it moves to edit mode on the modification set. So I don't have to do, twice the configuration, and the content type overrides or takes, let's say, it becomes the active, let's say, configuration on the modification set for whatever comes to item configuration and maybe some other items like hierarchies. So I am doing different things in different spaces, and if I move to content type configuration, then this is where I would maybe want to start doing more of item configuration as well. Now with this, I think I can move to my ARIS. So in order to be able to do content type configuration, the only privilege I would need is function privilege. I am now on the user management, just to show you that other privileges, other function privileges, I have the configuration administration. So this is the only thing I need in order to be able to have access to this configuration. So with this activated, now in this environment, I am the system user, so I have access to everything. And maybe now I will navigate to administration. Maybe you will see more things here that you don't have, but this is only because of my access maybe, or some licenses that I might have in this environment. So in order to access the content type configuration, wherever I am in the portal, I just have to go to administration. So maybe I have to refresh here my session. again, once I will, okay. Once I am in the administration, you will see that I have two access points. And here I am. So one, so let me try again. Okay, so the first tab I am landed is the published settings. I can navigate to the content type from here. You see now it is deactivated, but I can go to find and edit it with this tab. This tab will open directly this tab, so I can show you now the second way, and conventions, content types. So either this link, you see that I am now under conventions and other content types. So if your screen, if you are trying now and your screen is a bit different, it is that, and you don't have the method here, you don't have to have anything else. You just have to have access to this tab. Again, as I said, all this extra bit I might have compared to your environment is based on some additional licenses that I might be having here. Nevertheless, with the function privilege, I have access to my content. And by default, there is always something by default which is deactivated. And you can see that I can duplicate it. It is locked. I cannot reuse it. In any case, it's good to have it as a reference. If I have any other copy, I can duplicate. I can check the details. I can import and export in other environments. And that means that if I want to, I am on a test environment and I want to, I'm trying some configuration, then I can just take this export and then go to my production environment and import all the testing configuration I have made. Again, let's stay here. You see that I have here two options. This is what I will be using now for the training. I have here two options. I can activate it for modeling, and this is where the satellite modeling comes into place. As well, I can activate it for the published content. So either one or optional, I can also activate it for the published content. I will not do anything before I show you what the difference appears if I don't have it activated, and I will start with the satellite modeling. So you see that nothing is here. So satellite modeling is not activated in my environment. With satellite modeling, and now I will jump, I will try again. I will jump in a model, and satellite modeling is an easy way to model, to update my model, let's say. So it is a tool for the modelers to ease, let's say, their work. Without the modeling activities, you see that I am on the edit mode, because satellite modeling has to do only with the edit mode then of the model. I have opened a model. I am on this default United Motors Group database. I have opened a model, and if I navigate to the details, you see here that I have some the system attributes maintained. It is gray, and then other attributes as well that are maintained appear here. If I want to add anything new, I can come here, and then I can add additional attributes, and then you see that here I get the way we are used to from the thick client, the attributes groups that I have created in my method, and then I can see all the attributes under these attribute groups. So this is, let's say, I don't know what to call it, the normal way. I want to call it maybe one way that we are maybe used to ARIS ethic client, ARIS architect or ARIS designer. Now I would like to go back and activate my content type for modeling. And actually I will also activate it for published content, so I can show you later on a few more things. By creating a copy of the default, I have some content already, so it's not an empty space. There is some content already based on best practices, and whatever you would say that it makes sense to be configured. And then based on this, I can go and do any updates that I want. So I don't have to start from scratch. So I have activated this for modeling. I go back to my model and I will refresh. And now we will see some difference under the same information tab. So I'm still in the model. I still have these details activated. And now you see that it looks a bit different. I have selected the model here. I have some groups, some labels here. And if I navigate, I can see that here I have some attributes. Maybe I navigate to the status information. I take, some other attributes. So it's a way of grouping some content that I might, as a modeler, want to use. This content here now is related to the model because this is the context I have selected. If I want to select any other attributes, it will go under other attributes by default. So anything else in addition, it will get here. All this is a part of this default configuration on my content type set that I have just activated. Now, if I select on an object, you see here that this list now is getting refreshed because now the context is different. Now I have selected an activity, a task. So apart from some attributes that I might have under some categories, I also have now connections with objects. So part of the satellite modeling is to help modelers, not instead of coming here, if they want to add, for example, a different role, instead of going to the object, creating the assignment, and then in the new assignment, creating the objects and the connections. Instead of all this, with satellite modeling, I can say that I want to add an accountable. Here I have the full list of symbols that are allowed in the content type, and this list will get filtered with my filter. Now, in this environment, I use entire method. So that's why I have all the symbols available for me to choose. If in my filter I allow only roles, no matter what the content type has, actually it needs to have the role, but if it has a superset, then the filter is what will actually filter the content here. I don't have to align the content type with my filter. So here I will go, let's say, for a role, and I will look for a random one. Let's say that I am a good modeler. I know that I have to go for something that I have in the library. Here I have definitions that already exist in my database. So I will to create an occurrence of one of them. I will go for this. Maybe this example doesn't make any sense. It's just a random role, just to show what it will happen. You see here that now an FAD is created or an assignment is created. I need to first save my model. You see that now the changes are not saved yet. I just want to make sure that I'm saving my model before I open it to check it. And then I go open the model, and then the FAD has been created and updated automatically. So you see this is my role, and this is one connection that has been created based on, again, the satellite modeling I have for this specific object. So in this case, we have in the content type configuration, we say that I activate the satellite modeling. I have a group called ARIS. I can rename this group. I can rename any label here. I can add different relationships. We have said, and I will show you, of course, how we do this. We have said that accountable has this specific relationship, and I want the object to be created only in an assignment of type functional location diagram. Of course, it can be any that I'm using. In this case, I have said that whenever the modelers are going to create this specific connection, I want the role not to be hidden in a functional location diagram, but I want it to be created in the model. So again, in this case, I would select the object, the object, the role here, and then automatically the connection would be created in the model and not in any hidden model. If now I go to create anything new, for as long as there is already a function allocation diagram, then the same one will get created. And as you saw now, if this assignment doesn't exist, then from this configuration I have done, the system knows that if it doesn't exist, just go and create one and update it with whatever comes from the modeling at this stage. So I go back to select my object. So here we can see again, we might have systems. And again, I can select here to add a system. And again, I can control in the configuration how I want the connection to work and at which level, with which object type, with what connection type. And again, as I said, the filter as well will filter the content displayed and be available for the modelers at this panel here. So here there is a mix again with attributes and connections. And as we will see now, I can rename everything and I can change, I can delete them, I can create new, and we will see now how we will do it. So now I think it's a good time. I will close this and I will switch to the content type. So I am now navigating on the filter. I can view some details from this icon and I can edit it by clicking on it. And this is the case as well from where I am now already in for whatever I want to select. So we see here the items or the item groups, let's say, that I can configure for satellite modeling as well as for anything else that I might want based on this activation I did, if I want to consider it. And I will start with an example of a process. Maybe you are familiar with this idea. ARIS Connect uses some items, processes, one example here, and it groups some ARIS types, in this case model types, to give specific and the same kind of display in the portal. So if, for example, I have any reason to have two process model types that I'm using in my filter, that is eBPMN collaboration diagram and eBPMN process diagram, then I don't have to do the configuration for each of them. That would mean, again, more time. I can group them under processes and I can say, okay, these models, it's very likely that I want to have the same configuration and the same representation and to show the same detail, let's say, while someone is navigating in the portal. So process in this case, you can see by only leaving this mouse over, the model types included in this item. Again, you can navigate to the details, which is this one, display details. And here you see that we always have an ID. It should be unique. In some cases, if it's not unique, again, we need to know what overrides what. There is a name for this item that I can change it. And then here I take the list of models that will have, let's say, the same characteristics that I will configure, let's say, in this context here. Maybe I want to filter them further and restrict by the specific value within an attribute that I'm using. But as I said, this is a full set. If I only have two in my filter, it doesn't matter if I have here more. Only these two will have this configuration, will show the right configuration during the navigation in the portal with this filter. So to check the details, I'm going on the edit mode. And here maybe you start noticing that you have seen some of these groups already when we navigated in the model. So again, now I select the model. You see that there is general status information weak point analysis, general status information weak point analysis. BPMN information is out of the context of an EPC, so that's why it doesn't show here. So here I will get only what makes sense, let's say, or what is within this context of this diagram. Jenner or whatever has this icon here, you notice that it is, maybe you notice the three. There are information that I would expect to see by default in all types of this kind. And maybe here you see where I am. I am in the default sets under processes. If I want to edit the default, you see that now I am in the property group for all model types. So I can do, again, some changes en masse. I don't have to go to each model type and change this kind of attributes in this case, or some XML configuration that applies to more than one model type. And let me go back to my process. So I am back in the editing. Here I can add a new property group. I can delete a group if it is not any default. I can move it up and down as well wherever I am in one property. So these are property groups, let's say, and then we have properties within each of these groups. And if I am at this property, I can select that I want to get it out of this property group and I want it to show under another property group. And this is a full list that I have for this specific item called process. So everything is very flexible. This is some predefined content, but I can change it. And here, of course, I can go and rename it from the details. I select, I add, I can, actually, this is a good point. When I am on a model item, what I am, let's say, in one property group that I have created, and what I can create, the properties I can create for a model item is an attribute or some XML. An attribute is a bit straightforward. I have to select from a list of attributes. The UI kind of guides me to do this. And here you have property time. You see that in some, so you can recognize as well what it is what. I will go to one that I will need to show you something else a bit later on. Subordinate business processes. In order to write this, I might need some scripting here knowledge. This, as I said, is by default, but if I want other kind of connections between other items within the database, again, I can create some small XML and I can add here the property, and then I can use this property across my configuration. So this is an example, subordinate business processes. And yes, from here, your property type, you can understand what type it is on this model item, in this case, the process. Now, apart from, yes, so we covered that how we can display the details, how we can delete groups as well as properties, how we can move properties to different groups, how we can add a different property group, and within a property group, how we can create a new property. And what type of properties I have available here for creation. So now, moving on to an object. Maybe I will minimize this. I will go to the object. Now then, I'm still on the satellite modeling. I have selected this tab, and then I will go to examine these groups that I have here. From manage administration, then I will go to activity. And you see here that there are some restrictions. Let us go to display the details so we can check. Something else that I can do on the object level, apart from the attribute, restrict by attribute value that I have seen on my models, something else is that I can say that this item called activity, it is related to a specific object, but I want to exclude, or in another use case, I want to include only specific symbols. So maybe, and actually it's not that far away, if I come to this one, and I go to the edit, you see that I have the same object type, but in this case, I want only to use objects that are of this object type and these two symbol types. So again, I can restrict, let's say, what I want to include on this specific item called activity or control or anything that it is in this list, or anything that it's not in the list and I want to create. So the details show here, as we said, the same attribute and some details on the contribution, if this is something that I will decide when I go to edit the model, which I will do now. So I will click here to edit the model. And here it is, again, some general information and some status information for all objects of this kind. And here I have, again, another property group, which I have named Raxi. I can go in the property group now of the object. You see that I can add attributes, I can add XML, but I can also add relations. Okay, and this is what is all about here. As an example, I will open the responsible. So let's forget for the time being this part and let's focus on this right-hand side. I give an identifier and I give the name. So if I want to change something on this label appearing here, responsible, I can do it by changing the name. Then I can select, then you have one view mode, sorry, view label here, I would rather say, and also you have an edit tab here. So the view mode, and as well as, not as well as, is part of the published, is about using, let's say, this activation I did on the content type in the beginning, using the content type also for published content. So this means that I'm using some configuration I'm doing here for, let's say, the fact sheet that I have for a model where I show relationship of functions with roles or with any other object, or maybe for any property that I have added that I may want to use in the hierarchies that I can again set up on the content type. So view has to do with this kind of published content and how I want it to show in my portal. In this case, I say that the target content type, I am allowed for what I'm going to create now, the responsible, all the objects that I can find when I go to add an object under responsible. So this is it when I go, let me try all these symbols here. And then I say here on the view mode, do you want to include occurrences that are only in the model, or you want also to consider some roles or some objects you have in the assignments? And if yes, in which what's assigned model type should be considered in this case? I will show you an example of this, but not for this role. I have set up another one. Then you say that the connection that I want to use is this. I have these two. Again, as I said, the filter will decide which one will show and will be made available to the modeler. Maybe symbol type restrictions, if I want here to include. And then, so for example, for the group, I don't want this specific, whatever comes under the group, that I have all the symbols related to this object type called group, and so on. And then on the edit, I say, do I want this type to be, this relationship to be created in a model or in assignments? In this case, it might be in the model. So I want whoever is creating a responsible person to only, whenever it comes to edit, to create occurrence in the model, not in an assignment. Again, here I can select what type of object I want to be considered, or symbol, I want to be considered for the satellite modeling. And as well, maybe I have to add here some more detail if I want a specific symbol to be created by contribution. Contribution is not privilege, it is a privilege actually, the access, the privilege of some users to be able to add objects in the model via the overview page. But in this case, there is another diagram, another FAD that's getting created, and then the owner of this model has to decide, yes, we have to change the model and we have to update the model according to this contribution, to this suggestion. So here it is what I want, how I want to handle this case, as well as where I want this model to be created. There is a default that will create this model in a separate folder in the database called contribution, function location diagram, or whatever is the type of the diagram, and then the name of the function that the contributor suggested this role to be added, or this object should be added. When I have all my connections here I created, I can specify what exactly I want for satellite modeling and what exactly I want to use for contribution. So here you see that I want every of this object to be available. I can deselect something if I don't want. Or I can also, let's say, make also position as an object type here available for contribution. So whoever is going to contribute, maybe this is another option. But you see that it's only one in this case. So again, here I can decide what I want. I can add more connections. Now I'm going to show you one that it's already there, but this is what I would do if I wanted, from scratch again to create something new. I would have to step by step go from the target to the connection, and then again based on the method. So this reads the method. I would be giving some options here. I would be deciding on what I want, and then I would be, anytime I would be coming back to configure my system accordingly. So I just want to show you an example that I have set up about the view. I think with this demo that I did, the occurrence in model or occurrence in assignment, it was, I hope, quite clear of where I say, the objects to be created. But I want to show you an example of here. You see that I have accountable. Actually, even I will show you another example before. I want to go to the systems. On the overview, on my overview, I have systems here showing, right? And this is according to my model because I have some systems created on model level. You notice that these systems are not connected, are connected in this model, and there is no assignment. So the guess is that are connected directly at this model for this specific occurrence, okay? And they're not hidden in any assignments. So that's why here I have as well edited my fact sheet and have allowed the systems to show right here. Let's say that I don't want to show, I would like to show you on the view mode. And this is how it works. And I will explain to you why I have selected this specific example and I didn't continue from the relationship of the RACI. Let's say that I want to view only connections or functions to systems that appear in assignments. So I don't want any in the model. So with this, I would expect to see that maybe it doesn't make any sense as an example, just technically, I would expect to see that this overview page is updated. So the view content, is getting updated and the published content is getting updated with what I set up here. So occurrence in assignment, now I save it here. I expect then that this is getting removed if this works correctly. I have refreshed my page. And here you see that they might be in the model, but I have decided to say that I don't want to show this. And the same, maybe, in another case, it would make more sense to say that I don't want, and this is the case, I don't want in this table roles that are hidden in functional location diagrams. So I want only roles that show in the model. The functional location diagram have some content that appear somewhere else. In my use case here, I want to make sure that here I have only roles showing in the diagram. I didn't go for this example when I wanted to show you this. It might be that you think I can do it here, and in the accountable, I can deactivate it, the assignment, and it worked. It would maybe worked, but keep in mind that it might be, this is one property, and it might be another property that says that it's called roles, for example. And in this case, this would say that, the property called roles brings all connections of this type of symbols and objects and this type of connections connected to an activity. So just a reminder here, if you try to do this, just make sure you are using the right property when you are configuring the factsheet. So if I go to the configure factsheet, it is a matter of updating the item, but just make sure that you're updating the right property so it shows the way you want it. So if I go to the factsheet of this document, I select, you see that roles, there's a property called roles. Now I have added another property. So these roles, even if I would be doing this at this space in the content type, then here it reads a different property, so I wouldn't make any difference. You see, you maybe show here that I showed it, that two roles were showing. I have added another one as an example. Now I'm reading only this specific property. And if I go back to my racing accountable, I will say that I want only the ones showing in model. In my example, I don't have any of this connection showing in model, it's only the assignment. So again, I expect that this won't show. I expect that with refresh, this will go. Okay, so let's see what will happen. Here I have saved it. I will refresh my page. It's still refreshing here. I will keep that one. Let's see, I think, yeah, there's a small delay. But yes, just the point is that you are free to, configure the properties the way you want. And you are free to decide if you want this configuration to apply on the published content. And you do this by activating also the published tick box next to the activation of the content type. But just make sure that if something doesn't show properly, just make sure that you are, it might be another property that you are using that you have to consider changing. I will hit another refresh here. So if I go back, you see that now I don't have, it was the first one, advice customer financing that has the assignment and the extra role. And you see here that it comes under roles because it's a different property that allows all roles, but it doesn't come under this specific property accountable, where I have selected explicitly that on view mode, show something different. Okay. Again, maybe it doesn't make any sense as an example, but just to show you how this view works in contrast to the edits. So we covered about all this. Table here comes when you add a new type. So this is available to you, and then you can go and update it the way you want, and add whatever configuration you would like to add. The same here with the object. You can rename groups, you can move properties around, you can create different property groups and different properties. I think I have covered this already. And again, some might be XML configuration that if you want something more, let's say some connections that are maybe a bit more complicated, let's say, within the portal or the database. Maybe, let me find one that filter category. Predecessors, maybe this is a good example. Again, with some XML, you can create some small here codes, and you can include it. But as a start, the default content type has some content already, and whatever you might need. So maybe, you have something there already to use. So one last comment here. If I select something, other attributes, maybe I mention it, is it won't show if there is nothing there. And if I go to add something, everything goes under this bucket. But again, you can, a good idea for satellite modeling would be maybe to create a tab with, mandatory attributes, or with GDPR attributes, or, maybe apart from, obviously some context that you want to use for creating objects in NFID or other connections with objects. So pretty flexible, and some info already there. I would like to move on. Again, if you want to go back, you go back by selecting from here. Few words about hierarchies, and this is a place that you can create hierarchies. And when we say hierarchies is how you want the basic navigation to work from ARIS Connect. So if I go back now to my homepage, sorry, my published content, better, I see that I have the groups and the catalogs by default. So if I want to have a different navigation here, or more than one, I can also now create it from here. You see that ARIS defined by default, and you can activate a few of them that are there, but you can also create a new one. And you can also import from a configuration or modification set. And if I go to navigate to one, again, some details here that you can duplicate and delete and activate, but I would go to the details. And you see here that these subordinate business processes actually, this one is what I showed just before. It is a property of XML type that I found under the item process, right? So if I want whatever comes under the items, sorry, one small navigation here, whatever comes under models or objects, all these property groups that are created here with their properties, all this as well can be reused in the hierarchies. So maybe if I miss something, if I want, like a more complicated connection that I want to show, I just have to come first here, create this connection, this XML, create it as a property, and then I am able to find it in this hierarchy type and be able to reuse it. Something else that you can do is that if I go to the details, this is what I would like to say. Parent item, again, you have a selection of what you can select in some cases, and then again, it might be that you have to create some new properties and so on. And again, you can add start elements. If you want to say that I want the specific, maybe you have many value added chain as a starting point that defines some hierarchies, but you might want one for the process, let's say, not for an end-to-end. So here you can define a GUID, and this will be the starting point for this hierarchy. So here then I add items and properties in this, and I can go and create more or whatever makes sense for me as part of this hierarchy. So add hierarchy child or add navigation child here. And when I have something selected, again, the same content available here as well. So this a small bit for the hierarchies, and I would also like now to go to the published content search, which is related to the enterprise search. And this is a new functionality that we have now available on Service List 26. And this machine is Service List 26, obviously. And I would like to show you this from here. Within the content type, and while the published view is activated on the content type and not only the satellite modeling, I have here the option to select what items I want to take in the enterprise search. It might be that some items are a bit of minor, let's say, significance, let's say, during my search. Maybe I want activities to be on the top. Maybe I want systems to be on the top. Maybe I want controls and risks to be on the top. And maybe I want to say that the search should not be looking when I want to include activity on the enterprise search, but when I'm looking for a value, I don't want to consider, I want to consider all description. I don't want to consider anything else. And it might be that I have another field maintained with this, which maybe will increase, let's say, the results of the search. So in this case, I can select what exactly I want to be considered for this specific item that I have activated. And here you have as well some identifier in case you want to know which property is it. What else I can do also is to say that whenever there is an activity, I want this to be ranked as high. So if there's something that you can find in the activity, bring it as high. And okay, I have to resynchronize the published content because I have done some changes. In any case, I will do this, but I just want to show you activity. I want high ranking, and then maybe I want to deactivate few objects and not to be considered for the search. And maybe here you see there is a list of connect, let's say, items. Okay, and then maybe I want, for example, I don't know, domain, let's say. Again, I can see what exactly it is. I can play with the attributes here. And if it is connected, I can say that I want, lower ranking. So there is obviously an algorithm in the enterprise search that is looking into names of models, objects, and anything else that we can define here. And now we are, again, changing a bit the order or changing a bit the algorithm, let's say, of considering what matters more for our search, and maybe, keeping or tagging as lower ranking what we would like ideally to see in the end, let's say, of the enterprise search. So we have things on top of other things that are maybe more meaningful. So, and by this, I mean, maybe I will show you an example. I don't know about domain, but let me go to here, enterprise search. I will look for sales. I have some processes, but here I have some activities as well. And then based on this ranking, I would expect, if I haven't selected something to show here that wouldn't show in the list, if I have an activity, let's say that I have activated for the search and I have deactivated some attributes of this activity, I wouldn't be, if the sales was in one deactivated attribute, this activity wouldn't be here. And as well, lower in the search, I would expect whatever I have marked as low ranking. And again, I think that was it. But again, the last comment would be back to the content type. I might have to refresh here. The last comment is, again, I would like to show you the activating and deactivating for satellite modeling or published content. And I think that would be, I will reload here the page. There's something wrong. So content type, let's go this way. You see that now, actually, that here is also on because it is activated now. It is only one that can be activated at any given time. And here, this is the published content that I'm referring to if I want to also affect how the items show on the fact sheets or enterprise search. And here another link, another button, let's say, for the satellite modeling.